Welcome to the Explainer. You know, we are literally standing on the edge of a massive technological cliff right now. We're going to dive into how the singular fighter jet, the one we've known for decades, is evolving into this wild, sci-fi level flying network. The era of the lone, dogfighting pilot, it's basically over. It's making way for something far more complex, highly classified, and, yeah, incredibly expensive.
Here is our roadmap to unpack these massive international defense programs and the tech that's driving them. We'll hit the 6th-gen paradigm shift, NGAD, FAAX, and GCAP, then get into AI and collaborative combat aircraft. After that, we'll cover cognitive electronic warfare, adaptive engines, and wrap up with the future of air dominance. Let's jump in.
Section 1. The 6th-gen paradigm shift. Let's start with the actual catalyst that is forcing the world's militaries to rethink air combat from the ground up.
The F-22 Raptor is an absolute marvel of 5th-generation stealth engineering. It's iconic. But the modern battle space is shifting so rapidly. Adversaries are heavily deploying these massive, long-range, surface-to-air missiles and over-the-horizon radar networks, what we call anti-access and area denial envelopes. What this really means on the ground is that traditional 5th-generation stealth is just no longer enough to guarantee you'll survive, let alone dominate the skies.
So the solution here isn't just building a slightly faster or slightly stealthier plane. It's a fundamental shift. We're moving from a single platform to a distributed, multi-domain kill chain. Defense strategists like to call this a system of systems. The fighter jet is no longer just a weapon you point and shoot. It's becoming a highly secure command node in a much larger interconnected network.
Section 2, NGAD, FAXX, and GCAP. Now let's look at the big three global programs that are absolutely racing to define this new era.
When you look at the US and allied programs, you immediately see distinct strategic choices. It's not about one being objectively better, it's about differing timelines and priorities. The U.S. Air Force is pushing hard with the F-47 NGAD, which is laser-focused on penetrating contested airspace in the Pacific by 2029. Then you have the U.S. Navy's F/A-XX, tailored for carrier-based dominance, and they've got a massive downselect decision coming in August 2026 between Boeing and Northrop Grumman. Meanwhile, the UK, Italy, and Japan have teamed up to form Edgewing for the GCAP program. Aiming for 2035, GCAP is all about creating a seamless combat cloud that integrates with allied ships and satellites while critically keeping the tech free from U.S. export constraints.
Let's zero in on the American program for just a second. The U.S. Air Force recently handed Boeing the $20 billion contract for the NGAD platform, officially calling it the F-47. The name is super deliberate, by the way, honoring the WWBP-47, the Air Force's founding in 1947, and the 47th president who announced it. They're targeting a first flight in 2028. And get this, it's designed with an unrefueled combat radius of over 1,200 nautical miles. That is nearly 3 times the range of an F-22. It's specifically built to launch from places like Guam and push deep into the Pacific theater.
Section 3. AI and collaborative combat aircraft. Okay, so how do these command nodes actually fight? This is where AI teaming comes in, and it's a real game changer.
A collaborative combat aircraft, or CCA, isn't some remote-controlled drone like a Predator. Actually, scratch that. It's way more advanced. It's a semi-autonomous partner. The human pilot in an F-47 or a GCAP fighter isn't flying this thing with a joystick. Instead, they act like a quarterback. They give high-level commands, search that sector, or jam that radar, and the drone's AI figures out the tactics to execute it. This completely shifts the pilot's role from a stick and throttle operator to a battlefield mission commander.
To really put the sheer scale of this shift into perspective, the U.S. Air Force is planning a fleet of at least 1,000 of these collaborative combat aircraft. 1,000? The math works out to roughly 2 CCAs for every crewed NGAD or F-35 out there. By spreading out your sensors and weapons across all these unmanned platforms, you drastically pump up the combat power and the survivability of the human pilot. Plus, you get all that extra firepower without risking human life, and at a fraction of the cost of a crewed jet. It's huge.
Section 4. Mastering Cognitive Electronic Warfare. Let's talk about the invisible war and how these systems survive, because, as we said, stealth alone isn't going to cut it anymore.
Seriously, how do you fight in milliseconds? This is the core, absolute hardest problem in modern electronic warfare today. Adversary radar signals are now dynamically shifting frequencies, sometimes right in the middle of a single pulse.
Human operators, or even those older rules-based threat libraries, simply cannot react fast enough to analyze the signal and blast back the right jamming frequency. Dr. Michael Simon from Parallax Advanced Research sums this up perfectly. You literally have to take the person out of the loop. Cognitive electronic warfare uses artificial intelligence to ingest digital representations of these incoming analog signals, characterize what they are, and then autonomously generate custom countermeasures in real time. This cognitive EW setup operates as a fascinating multi-layered toolkit. First, it relies on classical heuristics for super-fast, rules-based responses. Second, it uses deep neural networks that were trained offline to recognize incredibly complex signal patterns. But the third layer is where it gets crazy: online learning. This means the AI is adapting in the field, in real time, to signals it has literally never seen before. It shifts EW from just a reactive defense trying to hide to a proactive offense, where it's actively fooling enemy radar into seeing a fleet of aircraft where there's absolutely nothing but empty sky.
Section 5. Adaptive Engines, the XA-103. To power all these AI brains, lasers, and reach those massive Pacific ranges, we need a totally new kind of propulsion.
Enter the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion Program, or NGAP. What we're looking at here is the Pratt & Whitney XA-103 prototype. Adaptive cycle engines like this are the beating heart of these 6th-gen fighters. What makes them adaptive is their ability to dynamically shift their internal airflow, depending on the exact phase of flight they are in.
By dynamically altering those bypass ratios, these engines give you the best of both worlds. In combat mode, they open up to provide maximum thrust for supersonic sprints and evasive maneuvers. But in cruise mode, they reconfigure themselves for extreme fuel efficiency. That right there is exactly how the F-47 hits that staggering 1,200-plus nautical mile range. And as a bonus, these engines provide robust thermal management. They act as massive heat sinks for the insane amounts of heat generated by all the advanced electronics and potential directed energy weapons on board.
Section 6. The Future of Air Dominance. Let's bring all these incredible technologies together and take a look at the strategic horizon.
Ultimately, whether we're talking about the US F-47, the Navy's F/A-XX, or the European GCAP, the core philosophy is identical. Air dominance is no longer about which single jet can turn the tightest in a dogfight. It's about which side possesses the smartest, fastest, most connected network. It's about leveraging a swarm of AI wingmen, dominating the electromagnetic spectrum in fractions of a millisecond, and managing a multi-domain combat cloud right from the cockpit.
And that leaves us with a fascinating, kind of wild paradox. We are pouring tens of billions of dollars into building the ultimate crewed fighters, while simultaneously perfecting the AI and autonomous drones meant to fly right next to them. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. If the aircraft can navigate, analyze data, jam radar, and engage targets autonomously at speeds a human brain simply can't process, how long will it be before the human is phased out of the cockpit entirely? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.